Hi everyone and welcome to today's lesson on body systems. This is lesson 2 of this topic. As with all the other lessons, you'll need a pen and some paper. If you do not have them in front of you, please pause the video and go and find some now. Today's starter, following on from what we learnt from last lesson, what is the function of the following organs of the digestive system? So what does the stomach do? What does the small intestine do? The large intestine do? The liver and the gallbladder? Question 2, what are the 4 main chambers of the heart called? Question 3, where does the heart pump blood? And question 4, how does the heart know when to beat? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this. Off you go. So the answers to the starter that you should have, guys, is the stomach is at the bottom of the esophagus where food is broken down. This organ contains acid too. The small intestine is the food has been digested and it's absorbed into the bloodstream. The large intestine is where excess water is reabsorbed. The liver produces bile, which helps break down fats. The gallbladder stores bile. What are the four main chambers of the heart called? You've got the left and the right atrium and the left and the right ventricle. Where does the heart pump blood? So one side of the heart pumps blood to the lungs and the other pumps blood to the rest of the body. And how does the heart know when to beat? The pacemaker cells in the right atrium do that and help the heart to actually beat every second or so. So the first section of today's lesson is on the blood. And the challenge and aspire for this lesson is to describe the components of the blood and explain what each part of the blood does. So the next part of this lesson is to look at the blood. The blood is a tissue that is made up of lots of different cells. The blood contains the following four parts. The first part is the plasma. The second part are platelets. The third part are white blood cells. And the fourth part are red blood cells. Now, in a laboratory, we can use a special machine called a centrifuge. And this is a machine that spins blood really fast and it can separate it out into all its individual components. And if you look at the diagram of the test tube on the right hand side, you will see that the majority of the blood is made up of the plasma, which is a straw-coloured liquid, and the red blood cells. Now, if we look at these individual parts of the blood in more detail, you can see that the blood plasma is a straw-coloured liquid and it makes up just over half, 55% of the blood content of the body. And the plasma transports all of the components of the blood. The other part, which might be familiar to you from last lesson, are the red blood cells. And if you remember that they transport oxygen from the lungs to all the organs and tissues in the body. The third part of the blood are the white blood cells. The white blood cells form part of our immune system, which defends us against diseases. So our white blood cells attack any pathogens such as bacteria or viruses that enter our body and destroy them. The final part of our blood are platelets. Platelets help our blood to clot. So when we cut ourselves, eventually we will stop bleeding, and that is because the platelets in our blood will form a barrier between us and the outside, and this will stop any pathogens from entering our bodies. Right, so now let's do a quick quiz. So for this, you're going to need your pen and paper. So the first question is to name the four components of the blood. So write that down on your pieces of paper now. Okay, the next question is, what do red blood cells do? Okay, the next question is, what does the plasma do? Okay, next question. Why are the white blood cells so important? And the last question. What do platelets do? Okay, let's go through the answers and mark your work. So the answer to question number 1, what is the blood made up of? The blood is made up of the plasma, platelets, red blood cells, and white blood cells. Question number 2, what do the red blood cells do? They transport oxygen to our cells. Question number 3 was, what does the plasma do? The plasma, remember, is the straw-coloured liquid that transports all of the components of the blood. Question number 4 is, why are white blood cells so important? And they are important because they are involved in our immune system and they help to fight pathogens such as bacteria and viruses and destroy them so we do not become poorly. And the last question was, what do platelets do? And platelets, remember, they are responsible for clotting the blood. The next section of this lesson is on food tests and diet. So our challenge is to be able to describe how food tests are used to identify substances in food, and the aspire is to be able to explain the role of each food group in the body. So I'm going to firstly run you through the different types of food groups, and the first food group that we need is the carbohydrate food group. And things that provide us with carbohydrates are things such as cereal, bread, pasta, rice and potatoes, also some sweets and fruit. And the reason why we need carbohydrates is they provide us with energy. The next food group is the protein food group, and examples of things that are high in protein is fish, meat, eggs, beans, pulses and dairy products. And the reason why we need protein is for growth and repair of cells. The next food group is the fat food group, or lipids, and things that are lipids are butter, oil, nuts, meat, eggs and cheese. And lipids are used for stored energy in the body and for developing cell membranes and insulating our bodies against the cold. Now, both vitamins and minerals are needed in small amounts to maintain health. Examples of minerals are milk and cheese for calcium, and liver, red meats and spinach for iron. and vitamins, you will find them in fruit, vegetables and dairy foods. Now, fibre is very important in our diet. We find fibre in vegetables, bran and whole grains, and it provides roughage to help keep food moving through our digestive system. And the last food group is water, and obviously all drinks and most foods contain water, and this is needed for cells and bodily fluids. It makes up 70% of our body, and replacing it prevents dehydration. So what I would like you to do now is a fill in the blanks task. So I would like you to write 1 to 6 on your sheet of paper, and I am going to give you 2 minutes to fill in the blank words. Now, if you need help, the blank words are at the bottom, but hopefully you'll be able to answer this without looking at the words at the bottom. So, like I said, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Off you go. So the answer you should have, number 1 is energy, number 2 is repair, number 3 is stored, number 4 is health, number 5 is moving, and number 6 is dehydration. So I'd like to now talk to you about how we test for different food groups. Now, usually what we do is we usually grind the food up and we mix it with water, and then we filter it to get a solution. And then we can then test for all the different types of food groups. So the first 2 tests are for carbohydrates, and that is the test for starch and the test for glucose. So the test for starch, firstly, starch is an orangey brown solution, and when the starch is present in a food and you add iodine to it, it will turn blue-black. Now, the test for glucose, what we do is we add a few drops of a solution called Benedict solution, and this solution is blue. And what we do then is we place it in a water bath for a few minutes, and the solution then will change in colour depending on how much glucose is present. If there is a little bit of glucose, it will be green. If there is a medium amount of glucose present, it will be orange. And if there is a lot of glucose present, it will turn red. So I remember that as a traffic light system. Then the test for the protein food group is you add 2 to 3 drops of blue burette solution. And if the solution contains protein, then it will turn purple. And then the test for fats is we grind the food with water. We do not filter this one though. We add 2 to 3 drops of Sudan 3 solution, and if the fat is present, a red layer will form on the top of the solution. Okay, so a task for you all now. The first question I'd like you to answer is, how is a food sample prepared for food tests? And how do you complete the biochemical tests? And then for the food test, what solution do you use? And what do you see if the actual food group is present? So what do we see for a positive test? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to complete this task. Off you go. Okay, so the answers that you should have to prepare the food ready for these biochemical tests. We grind the food with water and then we filter the solution and then use the solution for the tests. So the food test for protein is the Biochemical test, and if it is present, it will go from blue to pink purple. The glucose test is Benedict's, and the blue colour will go to orange red. The reason why that is highlighted in a pinky colour is just to remind you that you have to warm this test for it to be able to work. So you need to put it inside a water bath. The next food test is the starch, and the test there is iodine. Iodine is orange brown, but in the presence of starch it will go blue black. Then the fat test, we use Sedan 3, and a red layer forms on top of the solution if fats are present. So now a task for you to do, guys. So for each food below, I want you to decide with the chemical tests that are found on them what food is present or food groups are present because of those tests. So this food sample is steak, the test in iodine is orangey brown, Benedict's test is blue, Biochemical test is purple, Sedan 3 test is a red layer has been formed. So I would like you to work out what food groups are present in that steak. So I'm going to give you a minute and a half, off you go. Okay, so I hope that you've worked out that the Sedan 3 test, the red layer was formed, so fat is present in that food, and the Biochemical test is given as a purple result, and the Biochemical test is for proteins, so you should have also written that protein is present in this food. The next food that you can see on the picture is a potato. The iodine solution went blue back, Benedict's test went blue, Biochemical test was blue, Sedan 3 test there was no red layer. So I'd like you to work out again, I'm going to give you a minute and a half to tell me what food groups are present in this food. Off you go. So hopefully guys you've realised that the Benedict's test, the Burette test and the Sudan 3 test are all negative. So the positive result there is for starch because iodine went blue-black. So hopefully you've written down that starch is present in that food. So the next food is a glass of Coke. So the iodine solution was orangey brown, Benedict's test was orangey red, the Biochemical test was blue, and Sudan 3 test there was no red layer. So I would like you to have a think about what food group is present on those chemical tests in this food. I'm going to give you a minute and a half again, off you go. So hopefully guys you've realised that the only positive test there is the Biochemical test, which is turned blue, which is indicating to us that glucose is present in that food. And the last food is tomato ketchup. So the iodine test was orangey brown, Benedict's test was orangey red, the Biochemical test was blue, Sudan 3 test no red layer. So again, I'd like you to have a think about what food group is present based upon these chemical tests in tomato ketchup. So I'm going to give you a minute and a half again, off you go. So hopefully you have that the only positive test there is the Biochemical test, and that means that glucose is present in the tomato ketchup. So this section of the lesson now is on balanced diet and BMI. And the challenge and aspire for this section of the lesson is to describe what a balanced diet is and explain how BMI is calculated. Okay, so on to the next part of the lesson, talking about balanced diets. Now, you've probably all heard about a balanced diet before. What I'd like you to write down for me is what you think a balanced diet is and how much of each type of food do you think that you should eat as part of a balanced diet? So I'm going to give you a minute and a half again to write down your ideas. Off you go. So the question that I posed to you guys was, what is a balanced diet and how much of each type of food should you eat? So a balanced diet is a diet that contains a suitable amount of every necessary food group, and that's required for healthy growth and activity. Now, what you do eat will depend on your age, whether you're male or female, your lifestyle, and your physical activity levels. So the recommended amount that we should eat every day, the carbohydrates that we eat should be around about 55 to 60%, proteins should be about 15 to 20%, fats 25 to 30%, and vitamins and minerals 1 to 2%, and we should aim to drink between 2 and 3 litres of water per day. So eating too much or too little can lead to something called malnutrition. Now, when you hear the word malnutrition, everybody always thinks that it's by eating too little, when actually it can be eating too much too. And either of them can cause serious medical conditions. So eating too little, it can obviously lead to weight loss, and then you become tired, you can become ill more often, and then it takes you longer to recover. If you're a woman, you'll get irregular periods and your growth will be slowed. It can also cause deficiencies in your body, such as scurvy, rickets, and anemia. And then eating too much can obviously lead to excessive weight gain, which can lead to obesity. And then obesity can cause other issues such as arthritis, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and heart disease. So just a little bit on the risk factors for obesity. So inactivity, so that means obviously a lack of exercise. It means that you're going to have excess energy and it will get stored as fat. An unhealthy diet, so the fatty food will lead to a buildup of fat. Medical problems, some people have an underactive thyroid gland which leads to fat building up. Certain medications, some medications can make you put on mass. Your age, so the older they get, the more likely it is that your metabolic rate is going to slow down. So also that leads to weight gain and lack of sleep. So too much or even too little sleep can mean you can put more weight on. So this then leads on to me talking to you about something called BMI. BMI stands for Body Mass Index, and it's a way to work out if somebody is obese or even underweight. And how BMI is calculated, it's the mass that the person is in kilograms divided by their height in meters squared. Now there's different charts for adults and young people, and the BMI which has been calculated is compared to the appropriate chart in order to discover whether somebody's underweight, a healthy weight, overweight or obese. So what I'd like you to do for me now is do me a BMI calculation. So it said a 16-year-old boy has a body mass of 65 kilograms and is 1.7 meters tall. So I would like you to calculate his BMI. Now, obviously, you're going to need a calculator for this. So if you don't have one in front of you, please pause the video and find one now. And I'm going to give you 1.5 minutes to do this calculation. Off you go. So hopefully, using the BMI calculation, the 16-year-old boy's body mass was 16 kilograms and the height is 1.7 meters. So it should have been 65 divided by 1.7 squared, and 1.7 squared is 2.89. So it's 65 divided by 2.89, which gives us a BMI of 22.5. Okay, so now we've come to the summary section of today's lesson. So the blood is made up of red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma and platelets. Carbohydrates provide us with energy, proteins are for growth and repair, fats are for stored energy, vitamins and minerals are needed for health. A balanced diet is a diet that contains suitable amounts of all the necessary nutrients required for healthy growth and activity, and a diet that is not balanced could lead to malnutrition. A positive test on the food test for protein is pink-purple, a positive test for glucose is orange-red, a positive test for starch is blue-black, and a positive test for fats is a red layer. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to complete these notes. As always, if you need any more time, then please pause the video and make sure you complete the notes. Off you go. Okay guys, so now we've come to the end of this topic on body systems. So what I would like you to do now, on the next slide there is a summary mat of this topic. And what I would like you to do is when the summary mat comes on, I would like you to pause the video and I would like you to create yourself a revision resource which you can keep and use for the future. So you can either do it as a mind map, revision cards, a revision poster. It's entirely up to you. And then after you've completed your revision resource, what I would then like you to do is I would like you to complete 3 Google quizzes that is on the topic of body systems. So you've got quite a little bit of work still left to do. So I'm going to flick now onto the next slide. So like I said, you need to pause it and create your own revision resource of that summary sheet.